if you knew you were enough? What would your life look like? What would love look like? This is the Enough Factor broadcast, where we're redefining what makes you enough in life and in love. Now here's your host, Suzette Virnon.
Hello everybody, this is Suzette Virnon, your life coach and relationship solutionist, and welcome to another episode of my Enough Factor podcast. This podcast is all about helping you to redefine what makes you enough in life and in love on your own terms, so that you can break the cycle of failed relationships, of trying to live up to other people's definitions, and to really discover what makes you enough and your worthiness to have love on your terms. It's all about breaking that cycle, y'all. Breaking that cycle and attracting great love. And so with this podcast, I seek to amplify what I've identified as 3 critical factors. They are your voice, your value, and your vision. Tonight's episode really was inspired after I watched Oprah's interview with Quinta Brunson, the brains behind the popular sitcom Abbott Elementary. And right at the end of the interview, she says something that made me grab my husband and say, "That's it. That's it." She said that with her husband, she did not have to dim her light. She didn't have to be less than who she was. She could be her true self. And I grabbed my husband and I said, "Baby, that's why I love you so much. You are the only romantic relationship I've ever had where I did not feel like I had to dim my light, where I could be completely and unapologetically my true self in all of my brilliance, in all of my eclecticness, in all of my weird, nerdy eccentricness, that I get to be me. I don't have to make an apology for being me." And we started talking about it. And I said, "You know what?" I said, "In the beginning, I thought that the only people I had to dim my light for were the men that I was romantically involved in. It seemed their egos or whatever were intimidated by my fire, by my honesty, by my way of being in the world, by my way of articulating, by those values that I grew up with about honesty and integrity, and just simply being able to point out the elephant in the living room. If a man said he was going to do something and he didn't do it, I didn't sit and ignore it. I called it out. I said, "Listen, you said you were going to do so-and-so and you didn't do it." And I actually had someone tell me that men didn't like women like that, because most men do not like a woman who's going to hold them accountable, who's going to tell them the truth, who's going to point things like that out to them. And so when I was praying to God, I said, "God, well, I'm in a bad situation because I'm getting to the point in my maturity, in my age, where I just can't pretend anymore. I can't pretend to be somebody I'm not. It's like when I try to suppress who I am, it's like she just explodes with more intensity than she normally would." And I just told God, I said, for good or for ill, I am who I am. And I don't know how to be anybody else. I don't have the energy to pretend. I don't have the energy anymore. And I'm so grateful that happened because that was the best thing in the world that could have ever happened, where I just did not have the energy to talk myself out of being me anymore. I didn't have the energy to blame myself. I didn't have the energy to edit myself, to censor myself. It just got to the point where I just couldn't do it anymore. And if there was any apology to be made, the only apology was, I'm so sorry that I kept tolerating what I really shouldn't have tolerated. I'm so sorry that I tried to keep my mouth shut. I tried to suppress. I tried. My apology is that I tried to do it. And really what I really should have done was be honest and forthcoming from the very beginning. So I'm so sorry if my trying to suppress and censor myself caused you to believe something about me that wasn't true. That's my apology. My apology is I wasn't forthcoming. My apology was I didn't tell you what I was thinking. My apology was for tolerating something that I shouldn't have tolerated. And as a result, when it finally came out, it came out with an intensity that it shouldn't or it wouldn't have if I had just been honest in the first place. So I apologize for making you think something that wasn't true just because I didn't speak up. So for that, I apologize. But for being who I am, no, I don't apologize for that anymore. I only apologize for making you believe I was somebody different. And that was something that I had to accept. I had to accept responsibility. That in situations where sometimes I would show up and tell the truth and speak my truth, it was a day late and $1 short. Because the whole relationship had been built on me trying so hard to live up to somebody else's definition of what friendship was, or somebody else's definition about how a woman should behave in a romantic relationship. And that caused me to have to take a step back and say, look, what is your definition, Suzette? What is your definition? You have to reject a definition where dimming your light is even an option. Right? And I'm so grateful that with my husband, Robert, I have never had to dim my light. I've never had to apologize. I've never had to play to his ego. I've never had to be concerned about it. I have truly, in this relationship, this is the freest I have ever been in any romantic relationship in my whole entire life. Do you know how freeing that is? How freeing it is to finally be with someone that you can truly be yourself and not feel like it's because of you being yourself that you don't have nobody. Can you imagine the freedom, the healing that comes when you realize that it's not your fault? That being you is not the problem. It's when you can't be you. That's the problem. And I am so grateful because for so long I thought I was the problem. I was darned if I did and darned if I didn't. But meeting my husband and being married to him is so freeing because the truth of the matter, I wasn't free to be myself ever. In my growing up, I was never free to be myself. I always had to dim my light. Always. I had to dim my light growing up at home. It was not okay for me to be me. I had to dim my light in church because it was not okay for me to be me. I had to dim my light in school because it wasn't okay for me to be me. And so The only time I was really free to be myself unapologetically, I mean like totally myself, was when I lived by myself until I met my husband, Robert. And it was interesting, as I was saying, I thought it was only limited to my romantic relationships, but the truth of the matter was, even in my friendships, I had to dim my light. I either had to dim my light or I felt like the friendships were imposing on my light. And because of them imposing on it, I didn't have the freedom to choose when I wanted my light to be exposed and when I didn't. I'll give you an example of it. In my situation, my sisters and I were musically talented. We still are. And for a long time with me growing up, I resented the fact that I couldn't just go to church and just worship God. Whenever I or one of my sisters would walk into a church service, someone would always say, "Oh, I think we have one of the Randolph sisters here. Maybe she'll give us a song." Or somebody needed somebody to play the piano. "Oh, one of the Randolph sisters is here. Maybe she'll come and play the piano for us." It was that kind of thing. I felt like I did not have control over my own gift. I didn't have the freedom to be able to say no. I didn't have the freedom to just come to church to just worship. And don't get me wrong, I enjoyed playing the piano and I enjoyed singing, but sometimes I went through things in my life that were so challenging and so difficult. I did not need to be on. I did not need to be performing. I did not need to be singing. I did not need to be playing the piano. I just wanted to just come into the church and to pray and seek my God because I needed to connect with him as one of his children. And I resented the fact that I could not come and just worship. Sometimes I'd come to church late so that in hopes that nobody would recognize me, just so I could just be able to just worship. Just come as a worshiper. And so either it was a situation where I had to dim my light, right? Because I felt like people were intimidated by it. Or there were situations that people tried to monopolize my light. They would impose their will on my light. And that wasn't comfortable either. They wouldn't respect my boundaries. If I said, "Listen, no, I don't want to sing. Please don't ask me to sing. I just want to sit and worship." I can remember times that I told people, "Please don't." They said, "We're going to send a message up so that we can get a solo." And I said, "Please don't. I really don't want to sing. I just want to come and just worship." And do you not know they would send a note up to the preacher anyway? And totally disregard my boundary. And so it was so wonderful to be in a romantic relationship where I had agency over my own light. I didn't have to dim it, and they didn't exploit it. They didn't impose their will on it. And I love my husband so much. And Quinta said something so beautiful. She said, in some of my romantic relationships, she said, I think the men felt like that if I was allowed to completely be myself, that somehow or another they'd lose. They'd be less than. that somehow or another they be less respected, less honored, less valued. And the complete opposite is true. And again, I was like, oh my God, this is so true. Because I live with a man that I have carte blanche. I can do what I want to do, the way I want to do it. I can completely and totally be myself. And you know what that does? I so appreciate it so much until I don't want to take it for granted. He's so kind. He trusts me so much that it makes me even more aware of him. It makes me love him more. It makes me respect him more. It makes me want to be good to him more. It makes me not want anybody to mistreat him or to undervalue him or to underestimate him or to take advantage of him. Because he's such a good human, such a great man. And to me, that doesn't make him weak. To me, it makes him one of the strongest men I've ever met. A man who has such respect for himself that he's not intimidated by his woman. He's not intimidated at all by my ideas, by the way I express myself, by me saying what I want to do. He's not intimidated when I want to share time with him and when I need me time. He's not intimidated. Not at all. Not at all. He never retaliates. When I'm honest, I don't fear retaliation. I got to admit, in the beginning, I kind of did, because that's all I knew. All I knew was being around men who would get intimidated and I would suffer some type of retaliation. That's all I knew. So sometimes I would do things and kind of like, hold my breath waiting for the other shoe to drop, or being afraid that, okay, he's going to act funny now. He's going to go into some kind of emotional manipulative tactic now. And he never did. And he never has. And in December, we'll be celebrating 8 years if the Lord should allow me to live. And not one time has this man retaliated against me. Not once. Not once. It is so freeing. Oh my God. It is so freeing. And I am so grateful. So super duper grateful to be in this kind of union where I am free to be who I am. And in return, it's teaching me to give him the same love that he gives to me. I am learning that it's okay to give it to him. I believe in romantic love. I found that romantic love has created an environment for pieces of my soul to be restored, reclaimed and restored. The areas that I didn't even know needed healing are being healed and are being restored just from this kind of love. So when people try to play romantic love cheap as if it's not as important as agape love or some of these other loves, I'm like, wait a minute. Then you don't know the true power of romantic love. You don't know the true power of committed love. You don't know the true power of that kind of love between a man and a woman. It is just as spiritual. It is just as divine. It is just as transforming. When it's that real deal good love, it heals in ways that I didn't even know were possible. And that's why I so desire it for those who want it, who yearn for it, who really sense deep down in their soul that it's part of their soul's desire to have a romantic partner. I so desire that for them. And I believe that's part of my calling, to help them to have it, to help them to break the cycle of failed relationships and have that real love that they desire. I believe that's my calling. It's the reason that I went through things the way I went through them, because there's somebody out there who desires to be healed so they can love again. Even if the person they need to love most is themselves. I don't claim that everybody is going to find romantic love in the sense of having a romantic partner. But for some people, that's not even the love that they are looking for. That's not even the love that their soul is yearning for. You know what is? It's loving themselves again. It's being able to know that they are enough. It's getting their sense of worth and worthiness back. It's so that they can stop blaming themselves and feel like they're the problem. Learning to love themselves truly is the greatest love of all. And that's why many times people who participate in my program, in my coaching programs, their greatest testimony isn't just that they found the love of their lives or they had an experience of love different than they had ever had in their lives, but that they have had a different experience of themselves. They've reclaimed parts of themselves that they were taught were not enough. And they've been able to reclaim themselves. They've been able to love themselves for the very first time. To see themselves as lovable, not a problem to be solved. So whatever that love is for you, I just want you to know that it's your birthright. To experience great love is your birthright. Whether that great love is learning to love yourself or whether that great love is to experience romantic love. That it is your birthright. It's not something you should have to beg for, scheme for, manipulate for. It's not something that you have to dim your light for. You don't have to. Some of you feel trapped in your relationships right now because you feel like you can't really show your husband or your boyfriend or your significant other who you truly are. You can't tell them the truth about how you really feel. That's dimming your light, sis. When you can't express how you really feel, what you really desire, you're dimming your light, sis. When you can't be who you truly are, when you have to hold back, if you ever have to ask yourself, oh my God, what will they think? What will he think of me if I say this, if I do this? If he knows I make this much money, how is he going to feel about me? When you got to worry about being yourself because it might intimidate somebody else or make someone else feel inferior, that's its own bondage. Why would God make you this wonderful, brilliant person if there was not someone out there who could love you as you? Why would he create you with all these gifts and talents and give you those? And the consequence of you having it is that you can never experience real deal love. How cruel would that be? How absolutely cruel would that be? So you have to know that there's somebody out there that you don't have to be less than who you are for. And I'm a witness. For almost 50 years, I say things did not change for me. I did not become courageous enough to be my real deal true self until I hit about 48, 49 years old. And when I hit 50, that was when I met my husband, Robert. And for the first time, I did not have to explain myself. I didn't have to defend myself. I didn't have to argue with somebody who was trying to point out flaws in me. I was finally with somebody who didn't make me feel like I was the problem. I was the reason why they couldn't love me. If I could be different, they would love me. I'm telling you, he's the first man ever in my life that I didn't have to perform for. I didn't have to meet some kind of idealized rendition of me. I didn't have to. The more me I was, the more he loved me. That's a freedom that I wish for everyone. It's part of your birthright, and to accept less is to cheat yourself. And so if you're tired of cheating yourself, give me a call. Hit me up. Reach out. And if you're tired of holding yourself back because someone taught you that you were the problem, and as a result of that, you're afraid to risk being you out of fear that you're going to lose the man that you have. You're going to lose something. Then I ask you to reach out. I know how to help you to connect with your authentic truth. I know how to help you to connect with a part of you, with that part of you that can love all of you. I know how to do it because I had to do it for myself. And having had to do it for myself, I know how to help you to do it too. But you know what? You be the judge. I invite you to a one-on-one free consultation with me. And let's talk about it. Let's talk about how I work with women just like you to help them to reclaim themselves, to help them to stop betraying themselves, and learn that they can be trusted, learn that they are lovable, and to have the courage to bring their true selves to the table. Let me talk to you about it. Let me share with you how I work with women just like you. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you've never had a good relationship before. My goodness, I hadn't. It doesn't matter if you were told that you were the problem. I was told that too. My issue wasn't so much that I wasn't enough. My issue was I kept being told I was too much. It doesn't matter if you've had multiple divorces. It doesn't matter if the last person that you were in a relationship told you that you were the problem. It doesn't matter what you've been through. I just invite you to a conversation so that I can share with you how I help women just like you. Because I was that person. I was that person who, no matter how hard I tried, I seemed like I could never get someone to love me, truly love me the way I desired to be loved. And the way I desired to be loved was love where I could just be myself. where I could just be myself and not have to hold my breath, where I could exhale, where I didn't have to legislate parts of myself, censor parts of myself, where I didn't have to hold back out of fear of retaliation, fear of being misunderstood. If you're like me, I couldn't even bring my true self, my real deal self, even in the workplace. There was not one safe place for me unless I lived by myself. I wasn't safe to be my true self. I wasn't safe without being misunderstood. Truly, I couldn't share what I really thought. And on those occasions where I did, then people would be alarmed and felt like they had to talk me out of it. There have not been many cases, and it's very hard for me to even figure out of any situation where me stepping into the light as myself did not come back in some way to hurt me. And maybe that's why living by myself was the only way I could really be free. In my own home by myself was the only place I could truly be free. And if you feel like that too, yet your heart and soul are yearning for connection, yearning, you don't like feeling isolated. You don't like being the Lone Ranger. But experience has taught you that that's the only way you're going to have any peace. That's the only way you're going to ever have any freedom to be who you truly are. I want to talk to you. I want to share with you what I learned and how by learning it, it helped to pave the way to a romantic relationship where I can truly be myself. Truly 100%. I feel like I'm more me with him than I was before. And if that's what you desire, then the ways to reach me, they're in the description of this podcast. I would love to talk to you, and I would love to share with you how I help women just like you. How I help women just like you. So that's it. Thank you so much for listening. And just in case no one has told you, I want you to always remember that you are worthy. You are worth it. You are more than enough. Bye now.
You have just listened to the Enough Factor podcast with your host, Suzette Vernon. To get notified of new episodes or to dig deeper into today's topic, become a subscriber. And while you're at it, tell us how we're doing and what topics you're interested in. We appreciate your feedback and your reviews. Until next time, remember, you are worthy, you are worth it, you are enough.